Man, I made this animation too long. Screech. Bum bum. Hello. Hello everybody and welcome back. This is Ski-Dude and it's time for another Mine-imator tutorial, and as you saw in that opening video, I'm going to talk a little bit about creativity and objects in Mine-imator to really kind of broaden your spectrum for your animations, because a lot of the animations I've been seeing, it's been mostly just characters and buildings and scenery as well, but I wanted to bring across the point that you can add custom objects, and in my case, I added a truck. And so let's open this up and we'll go through exactly how I made it and just talk about it. So I didn't build this in Mine-imator. That would have taken forever to build that block by block. I actually built this in Minecraft, use MZ-edit to export it out as a schematic. So when I brought it in here, it's just the frame of the truck. And then what I did for the tire is I actually just made an item on the item.ping that you usually pull from. Now, since I made the item, I had to import a custom ping file, but I just made it the normal 16 by 16 size. As you can see up here, I attempted to round the corners the best I could and added a hubcap. And for the axle, I did use Mine-imator to make a fence post, because in Minecraft you can't have fence posts going out sideways, and then lights, of course, on the front of the truck. So if you look at my library here, I only have 6 items, but when we go ahead and look here at the timeline, I've got a lot more than 6 items here. And that may look a little intimidating and confusing because there's so many, but really this was very easy to put together, and let me show you exactly how I did that. And if you look on the timeline, I really only have keyframes on this top line, which is the truck position, and everything else just really only requires one keyframe here at the end, and then me, of course, waving. Of course, lots of keyframes to make me wave, but essentially this kind of built itself, and let me show you exactly what I mean by that. So let's go ahead and delete, well, I'm just going to hide one of these tires, and I'll show you how that came about, how I did the tires. So what I did to start this off was I animated, well, by animate I mean I moved the truck around the map with just one tire spinning. And the reason I did that is because I knew it was going to be very complicated and time consuming if I made 4 individual tires and animated them in the same way. It would just take way too much time, and David has put in place this instance tab to make things a lot easier. And if you look here, this is where all those things on the timeline come from. So if you don't understand instances, or you haven't watched my instance video, I'll leave a link probably right about here. To go watch that video, because you're going to want to understand instances before you work on something like this. So moving onward, let me show you how I added all the tires. So I told you I started out with 1, and that was the front right here. And all I did to make the other 3 was I came down here and found it, which is axle 1 and tire 1. I duplicated, and I made it somewhat conformed, because it's a lot easier when you, in my case, when I line up the numbers like this: axle 3 to tire 3, axle 2 to tire 2, axle 4 to tire 4. It's a lot easier if you work somewhat in a how do I want to say this, in a conformed fashion, so that it's easier on your brain. And as you can see, when I duplicated those, they came out all crazy scale and rotation size. But let me show you how the program just pretty much does it for you. So all I'm going to do is click tire 5, lock to parent, axle 5, okay. It's sticking out in the correct direction. Now, let's go to scale, and if I just lock axle 5 to the truck, you're like, well, it disappeared. And it actually didn't disappear. Let me find it right here. When you click on things, they actually kind of flash white to show you which item you're working on. And as you can see, it flashed white right there. And that's because when you duplicate something in the instance tab, it inherits the attributes of the original, I guess, which would have been axle 1 and axle 2. And it doesn't inherit all the properties until you pretty much mimic the operation. So when I duplicated it, you saw the tire was huge, the axle was huge, and they were all facing the wrong way. But when I mimicked the operation, meaning when I parented the tire to the axle, then the axle to the truck, it knew, okay, I have to copy the master copy, which is axle number 1 and 2, so I changed the scale and put it in the same spot. So all I did to get it in place, and while you're working with parents or parented items, you want to make sure you always grab the top parented item. So in my case, it's going to be the axle. If I was going to go ahead and move the tire, I don't want to because the undo and redo features aren't working just yet, and I don't want to try and fix it, but if I moved the tire, it wouldn't move the axle with it. But since the tire is parented to the axle, if I move the axle, let's go ahead and pull up the position sliders, it does move the tire with it. So you always want to make sure you're moving the top parent, which in my case is the axle. So I just eyeballed this. Looks like it lines up pretty good right there. And since I need to have it facing the other way, I just slide open here the rotation, change this to 90, pull back up the position, and move it in place. Oop. Alright, right there. That's pretty close. Now, another problem here is, okay, let's press play. The tire is spinning the wrong way, and that's because it's mimicking the rotation of this tire, which is correct on this side, but when you flip something to this side, it's actually going to be spinning the wrong way. So an easy fix on that is you just go into the tire keyframe. Let's open up rotation, and I actually want to edit the end keyframe because that's where the rotation is coming from. Tire 5. So let's fly over here, and you can see here the Z rotation slider I set to negative 20,788, and so that's how many rotations it's going to make by the time it drives all the way around, and I felt that was a good enough speed to make it look like it was driving. And yeah, I should have slowed the rotation down right here where it comes to a stop, but really I'm just, the point of this tutorial is not to show off my amazing building skills, which are very apparent. I mean, look at this truck, it is simply amazing, but to show you, I guess, how it works in Mine-imator. So all I did to this to make it spin the right way was I right-clicked, went to manual input, and changed 20,788 to positive 20,788. So now, let's go back to the beginning. Press play. So now it is spinning in the correct direction. So that solves our problem there. So I guess the point I'm trying to get across here is be creative in your animations, bring in custom props, vehicles. I was going to make a motorcycle, but I'm running out of time as I have to head to work here shortly. You know, build a plane, build a boat, you know, a bigger boat than the Minecraft boats, anything like that, and you can turn it into an object and take your animations to the next level. Rather than just two characters running around in scenery, you can have, you know, a big car chase, a big airplane fight. You know, be creative, and that's the point I wanted to get across with this tutorial is don't let, I don't want to make this seem negative, but don't let Mine-imator limit your creativity because you're only given a limited amount of items, which is blocks and characters. Open it up, add some custom schematics. That's what this truck is it's a scenery. Be creative. And use the instance tab. Like I said before, I've got 6 items in the library, but I've actually got loads more here in the instance tab and on the timeline. And I didn't have to individually come and edit each of these items. They just copied the parent, which was axle 1 and tire 1. And the tires pretty much built themselves. I just had to put them in position, change the rotation for this side, and it's good to go. And same thing with the lights. As you can see, there's no ending keyframe for the lights, and that's because this first keyframe, I just told it to parent to the truck, changed its position, put one on either side, and that's all they're told to do. They're never told to change position. I don't need to put millions of keyframes in here to keep up with it. Since they're parented, they just stay where they are. Same with the front lights. So make sure you're just being creative with your animations, using all of these wonderful features that David has put into it. Instances and well, of course you'll need the library, but the instance tab is really a very powerful feature that I think a lot of people underuse. So that kind of wraps up my creativity segment, and now I want to show you something. A lot of people have been asking for facial rigging, and this is actually not mine. This is David. David actually shared this with me yesterday, I think it was. He's just like, hey, look at this animation I made. So I looked at it, and at first I was just like, oh my gosh, he made facial rigging. How did he do that? And the reason I'm showing you this is because this ties into the whole creativity thing. Oops. Well, come on now. There we go. Let's zoom in here on his face. I don't know if you saw it before. And let's make this smaller. When we press play, uh-oh, Steve scowls, and then he's sad. Let's get under here so we can see a little bit more. You can see the eyebrows right here that are actually moving and making it look like you've done facial rigging. And all David did, if I open up here in the library, is he made a scenery, which was 2 blocks, side by side, brought them in as a schematic. The pupils are just wool blocks as well. He didn't animate those, but let's see, pupil 2. I mean, he could have moved the pupils around so that they would move back and forth. All he did was bring these in as a custom object, changed the scale down to 0.06, moved them into position where they're just barely poking out of his head so you can see them. And slow this down so we can see it, and just put it where eyelids would be. Same with the pupil. You can move the pupils around, whatever. So he gets mad, drops his sword, and then he gets sad. So this just goes back to creativity. You know, he's actually going to be adding this feature into the new beta 0.6 as far as scenery objects and stuff like that for custom eyebrows and eyes. So I'm not going to show you exactly how he made it, just because it's going to be an obsolete tutorial since he's going to be adding it in the new beta. But just be creative, you know. You could, essentially what you could do is make a skin and just have a completely blank face, and then import your own facial objects, eyebrows, eyes, mouth, and go nuts with facial rigging like that, you know. So I guess that's enough of me blabbing about creativity and whatnot, but I wanted to show you this because I thought this was way cool, and a lot of people have been asking, well, you know, let's do facial rigging. And this essentially has been in Mine-imator since the beginning. You just had to figure out, oh, you know what, I just bring in 2 blocks and put them over his eyebrows and shrink them down, parent them to the head so that they move with the head, and there you go, you've got moving eyebrows. Same with eyes, mouth, ears, fingers, whatever. So that's enough from me. I hope this tutorial helped you guys as far as creativity and whatnot for your future animations. Just think outside the box. Don't let this limit you. Let it help you. Let this instance tab help you with your animations. So anyway, this is Ski-Dude. This was my tutorial on creativity and on custom objects. Check out Mine-imator if you haven't before on David's website that is always linked in the description of my Mine-imator tutorial videos. And as always, subscribe, thumbs up, any comments below, questions, concerns, and I will try to help you to my best ability. I will catch you guys later. Peace.